Good evening, everyone, and welcome to North Carolina Candid Critters webinar for the summer season. My name is Dr. Roland Kays from the North Carolina Museum of Natural Sciences and NC State University. And I'm joined today by Dr. Maria Palomar from the Wildlife Resources Commission.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah, great. Thanks for coming. So today we're going to give an overview of the Candid Critters project, which is a citizen science camera trapping project across the entire state of North Carolina, aiming to get cameras in all 100 cameras across the state, all 100 counties across the state to learn about the wildlife and the animals in the state. And what we're going to do today is share some of the results and take some questions from you at the end. So we're going to start with what's really my favorite part, the favorite pictures.
Yes.
And so these are some of the favorite pictures that have come in just from the summer. And you can go to our website and see dozens and hundreds of the favorite pictures. But today we're just going to talk about a few of the favorites of the favorites. And we're starting with this black bear from Macon County, North Carolina. A beautiful sort of Smoky Mountain scene. We've got this beautiful black bear, not too big, not too small, just right.
Just the right size, and I think he's actually eyeing that down tree because they do eat insects and larvae, and maybe he's looking for his next meal right there.
Yeah, so black bears are carnivores. They're related to other carnivores, and certainly they'll eat meat if they can get it, but oftentimes it's grubs, fruit, blueberries, all sorts of different stuff. And sometimes it's camera traps on the diet.
Yes.
Don't like it when that happens, but every once in a while they'll come sniff a camera trap, and sometimes they use it as a back scratch, and every once in a while they chomp down, which we really don't like, but it does happen. So what's our next favorite picture?
Well, I think that this is definitely one of my favorite. It's a coyote, and you can tell that the coyote is shedding its coat, and which is normal for this time of the year. This animal looks very skinny and very tall. As you know, coyotes are all over North Carolina. We have not found them in the cameras all over North Carolina, but we do have reports of them actually existing in every single county of North Carolina.
Right, so coyotes are basically our biggest prey in the state. Sorry, biggest predator at the state at the moment. You know, when you consider that bears are more likely to eat grubs than actually chase something down. But they're still way smaller than the cougars or the wolves that used to live here. They do sometimes eat deer. They eat a lot of rabbits. They eat a lot of fruit. They eat a lot of insects. They're really opportunistic. And this guy, I love, like you said, it looks like his legs are super lanky. And I think it's not because he's extra big, but it's just because his coat is really thin. Because if you can see on the top corner of the camera, it shows the picture. It shows this picture is from July 1st. It's probably pretty hot out there in Burt County this time of year.
Yes, definitely.
All right, so our next picture is the mighty gray squirrel, one of the most common species we get, and one of the most important species in North Carolina because it plants seeds, right? Of course, everyone knows the gray squirrels are going out during the fall, grabbing seeds, planting them under the ground. So I like to imagine that this guy is kind of sitting on his rock, looking out over the forest here and thinking about how many seeds he has left from the last fall and how he can't wait till the seeds start falling again this coming fall.
I think it's interesting too about gray squirrels is that we get most of the calls that we get here at the Wildlife Resources Commission about interactions with animals, people that are maybe not so happy with animals are about gray squirrels,
really?
Which is, it's more than coyotes, more than raccoons, more than bear. We do get
what
calls
are they doing?
About gray
They're
squirrels.
chewing on stuff?
They're usually chewing up someone's attic and living in there with all their babies.
Well, we do find we've working with volunteers run a lot of camera traps in backyards, and gray squirrels love backyards. Yes, they're quite common in backyards. So our last picture for the it's the second to last picture, I think.
Well, this is one of our magnificent elk. I don't know if all of you know, but elk used to roam North Carolina until eventually they became extinct in North Carolina. We had to reintroduce them. The national parks reintroduced them to the Smoky Mountains. And now, slowly but surely, they're growing, and their herd is becoming more and more stable.
And this guy looks like more than slowly and surely he's growing. This guy's massive. He's got huge antlers, and you can see there's still a little bit of velvet on the antlers. So this guy is he's not going to get any smaller. He might get a little bit bigger. A big bull might be one of the guys that you go see out there fighting in Cataloochee or other places for access to the females, because the males will fight with each other to determine dominance, and then that male will control a harem of females, the way the elks do it. And we've only got elk so far in 2 counties, Swain and Haywood County. There's a couple more counties that we know there are a few elk, and so it'd be great to get some more cameras out into these areas to help us learn about the elk, because we know some from sightings, we know some from a few animals that are tracked with collars, but there's a lot more to learn from these cameras that are pretty efficient at getting them. Certainly, if an elk walks by a camera, we're going to get a good picture, and this is one of my favorites so far. For sure.
And if you go at the right time of the year, you will hear them bugling, which is actually a pretty awesome thing to do.
Yeah, great. I love that sound.
Yes.
Crazy.
Well, here we have one of the beautiful fawns. It's the right time of the year for fawns in North Carolina. We are debating on what's hanging out from his mouth. I want to believe that it's a grape.
I'm afraid it might be a giant tick, which would be kind of disgusting. Let's go with the grape. He's probably eating the grape and it's just falling down or something. But sometimes when ticks get really big, I just have a hard time believing that a tick that big would hang out on an animal.
I know. Eventually they drop off.
They would knock it off. But a beautiful fawn, and we're going to be talking later today about the Fall Fawn Frenzy, which is our effort to get a really, really good estimate of the fawns in North Carolina in 10 select counties. And one of the things that we'll be doing during the Fall Fawn Frenzy is looking at the coat patterns. And so this guy, or girl, I can't tell, is still has dots on the side, and you can see the unique spot pattern, and we'll be able to identify individuals and actually count individuals between there. So, so those are some of our favorite pictures. Sorry if we didn't show yours, but one that you got. But remember, all the favorite pictures are up on our website, ncandidcritters.org, and you can go there and click around and see the pictures and download them. You can use them, you can share them, you can put them on Facebook, you can go to our Facebook site, whatever. Let's get these pictures out there. If there's a picture you like, please tweet it or put it on Instagram. We want to get these pictures out and share them, make the most of it. So that was the favorite part. We're going to go next to a section that we spiced up last time and this time. This is our reminders section. But instead of just being sort of a dull series of reminders that we run down, we brought a special guest from the North Carolina Museum of Natural Sciences, Matt Snyder, in to spice it up a little bit with your pre-deployment briefing. Take it away, Matt.
Welcome to your pre-deployment Candid Critter briefing. Please remember to return your cameras before August 1st so that we have time to prepare them for redeployment into the 10 counties for the Fall Fawn Frenzy. Anyone who lives in or is willing to drive to one of the Fall Fawn Frenzy counties, please participate this fall. Remember to sign up. If you are participating, please remember that these deployments will be for 2 weeks instead of 3. Don't forget to make sure that your camera is set to the greatest number of pictures, 5 for reconics, and please remember, do not delete your images. Don't forget your Kodak moment when you set and pick up your camera so that we have a timestamp of your deployment. Set cameras parallel to the ground at knee height. Camera owners can run cameras wherever they have permission during the fall season. In consideration for the upcoming hunting season, please remember to wear blaze orange for safety. If setting cameras on public land, make sure to carry the permit with you, which can be found on the Candid Critters website. And finally, don't forget to post pictures using the Candid Critters hashtag on social media. Remember, enjoy your deployment season.
All right, thanks, Matt. That was great, coming straight from the museum's aircraft, of course. So if you have any questions about these points or others, remember that you can ask them at the end of the webinar, and Maria and I will do our best to answer them for you. But next, I want to go into a section we call Rolling with the Numbers. So I'm Roland, and here are the numbers. So far, we have over 800 volunteers that have run cameras across state, which is incredible. It's a huge amount of people, and we greatly appreciate your effort to help us get these data, get these great pictures, and learn more about the animals. And hopefully you're having some fun, too, getting out there into the woods and seeing these animals. We've got data from over 85 counties. That means there's still some we don't have data from, so please, if you belong to one of those counties or you're nearby and you're willing to go travel there, please help us fill in these gaps. This means 800 deployments, so 800 camera locations that we've had run and completed. Right now, about 300 cameras running. That's fantastic. That means we have a constant accumulation of data showing what's happening in the state right now with the wildlife, and this has resulted in almost 400,000 photographs. that have been uploaded, and we've been managing them. We're with your help of tagging them, sending them to us. We're double checking them. We're getting them archived. We're totally on top of it, and we're not falling behind, which is great. And the other great thing is about 20% of you are running your own camera traps, which we greatly appreciate. That helps us stretch out what we can do on our budget. We also have about 80% that are borrowing cameras through us, through the museum, through the collaborations with local libraries, and we have more out there. So many libraries have cameras available, so be sure to check it out and sign up for that. So what have we been finding so far?
Well, we have found that most of the detections are from white-tailed deer,
Right.
which makes sense. They're a big animal. It's hard to miss. And as Roland was explaining to me earlier, there's going to be some adjustment made for smaller animals. The second one.
Second one is gray squirrels.
Yeah.
So that red pie square is or pie triangle there is gray squirrel. And so between white-tailed deer and the gray squirrel, those are most of the animals we've had so far. When you account for the fact that the gray squirrel doesn't trigger the camera quite as far away, that will bounce up their percentages. But let's check these two out and look at the other species, because even though they're the most common, we still have really hundreds and thousands of detections of some of these other species. Number 3 is raccoon. Number 4, we've got a bird jumping into the e-mammal mix with the wild turkey. Number 4, possum. I know this is one of your favorites.
Yes.
Loving the pictures of the possums. And then on the least common side across the state, we've got elk with about 30 detections, which
is actually pretty good for the number of elk that we think we have here in North Carolina.
and considering it's mostly just 2 counties so far. So
Yes.
it'd be great to get some more cameras out in elk territory to get some more elk pictures. We've got, I think, pretty fun, a few pictures of otter, a few pictures of mink. These guys are, of course, mostly underwater, so not the type of critters we normally get on our camera traps, but we're doing all right with them. And I want to be sure to introduce you to our website, which has been updated. If you haven't been there, check it out. It's ncandidcritters.org. And we now have this map that updates every day with the latest information that you guys have been finding for the state. So in this case, the shading on the map is showing you how common deer are in these different areas. You see over in the bottom right is the legend that says the detection rate. So this just means if we have a camera out, how many deer walk by per day. And you can see some of these areas are having over 2 deer per day walk by the camera, which is a lot. And other areas down around, 1 deer every 10 days or so. And importantly, let me point out the gray counties, we don't have any samples from those counties yet. So that's an area we really need your help to help fill out this map, because this is really one of our goals, is to learn how are wildlife distributed across the state. This is something that we're interested in at the museum, and I think the commission.
Yes, we're definitely interested in understanding how the wildlife is distributed throughout the state. And for that, we need everybody to be participating of this.
So we really appreciate your help populating these counties. And you can see on the top left, there's a legend. So you can click and see, in addition to deer, we've got coyotes. You can see a couple high density coyotes over there in the county. Let's go back to coyotes for a second. A couple high density counties over there on the coast and in the Midlands, and a lot that we're still waiting for some data on. And then black bears, you'll see, as we know, they're sort of generally in the mountains or in the coast. There's a lot of white counties that don't have any black bear. I know there's some more counties on the east in particular that have black bear that aren't up there yet. So
and I'm waiting to see some of those cameras in the center of the state catching some of these bears, because there are some moments where the bears are moving through the Piedmont, and I think it's going to be exciting to see where they're moving through. And it's usually when the younger bears are leaving their mother that you can see them in other areas, but eventually they find their way
maybe
back.
later in the fall.
Yeah.
And so they're just kind of commuting either east or west, I guess.
Yes, they're finding their way back to where they belong.
Okay, so on this map, you can also click a particular county and see the details. You can see some of the favorite pictures. So this is Rockingham County, for example. Got a nice coyote picture there. You can see how many cameras have been run. So in this case, Rockingham County, we've got 3 cameras. Not a lot, so maybe we're still getting a better estimate. As you get more cameras in a county, you get a more confidence in that estimate. So these numbers could go up or down as we go. Again, we're kind of just getting started in this, so looking forward to seeing how this map changes over time. Be sure to check back, every couple weeks or every couple months and see how this picture is changing in the state. So next we're going to talk about the fall fawn frenzy.
Yes.
Tell me about it.
Yes, well, the fall fawn frenzy is actually a very specific effort that we're doing to understand how the deer are bringing new fawns, recruiting new fawns into the population. We want to understand how many fawns are born to each doe around the state. And as you can see in this map, we've only chosen 10 counties to do this very intense effort. And that's because these 10 counties are representative of the different habitats across the state. So even if your county was not selected, we're going to have a county there that is very representative of what you are seeing in your own backyard. If you see from our list, there are 2 counties that we really need help with, especially Moore and Pender County. And you should know that although maybe you're already signed up as a volunteer for the Candid Critter projects, you're going to still need to sign up for the Fall Frenzy aspect of it. This is a different sign up, and although you don't have to go through the whole training if you have already done it, you do need to specifically ask to be part of this part of the project.
So one of the things we're trying to really increase our resolution on these 10 counties. If you think we've got 500 cameras spread out over the entire state, we're concentrating them in these 10 counties to get a really good view of the fawns in these counties and this time. And so we need more people per county to help us run these cameras. So if you're in any of these counties, please sign up. It just takes a second to, especially if you're already a Candid Critters member, you already had your training, just sign up and say, yeah, I'd like to help. You can run it in your own property. You can run it in one of the places that we picked out. We've got lots of cameras. We're going to be moving all the cameras to these counties. So we really need your help. Hopefully you guys will rise to the challenge and help us get a good picture of these of the fawns in your county.
And you should know that now we have a library in each one of those counties, so you won't have to go to a different county to get your cameras. You can get them from there. Also, these are the counties here, and it's important to notice that they're not starting all at the same time. So we are actually timing these camera deployments so that they are very well timed with the fawns being on the ground already, being born. So make sure that you know when is the starting date for your county and that you're prepared for that ahead of time. But don't wait. Just go ahead and sign up right now, and later on you can go ahead and start putting your cameras out there for us.
And in this case, we're going to be running the cameras for 2 weeks. Normally we run for 3 weeks, but because we're trying to get a really intense, as many points as we can, we're running for 2 weeks. And if you want to run more than one camera, we're happy to loan you more than one camera. You can run a bunch of cameras for us to really try to get a good idea. And so, Maria, why do we want to get such detail on the fawns in these areas?
Well, the main thing about this is that this data is going to be used to inform the way that we manage at the Wildlife Resources Commission deer. We want to make sure that we have the best available data, and for that we really need to understand when are the fawns hitting the ground, how many are surviving, how many are staying with the mothers. And like you said earlier, some of these fawns are going to be able to, you're going to be able to identify individually. So it's going to really help us understand how the landscape is affecting the number of fawns that you get per deer.
And so what are the things that you think might affect how many fawns survive from when they're born to when we get pictures of them here in the early fall?
So there are several things that could be happening, and one could be habitat. If the habitat is not very good, the mother may not be in great condition to support that fawn, but it could also be coyotes. So understanding the presence of coyotes and the presence of fawns, and if the coyotes are changing in any way their behavior while the fawns are out there, is going to really help us manage for those animals.
Right, so what's really cool is, of course, these same cameras are getting pictures of coyotes. And so we're going to be able to directly test hypotheses. This is what we do in science. We get this hypothesis and we see if the data support it or reject it. And so by comparing the survival of fawns, or well, at least the fawn to doe ratio, with the number of coyotes, we'll be able to see how much coyotes are having an effect versus other habitat factors or things like road density. Or, I mean, there's lots of things, or bobcats, or there's lots of things out there that would...
Other predators, urbanization. There are many things that can affect the survivalship of fawns.
And so we really want to know that. So that's a Fall Fawn Frenzy. Hopefully you'll join us. That's the main focus for the fall. This is where we're putting our camera effort. If you've got your own camera, you can keep running it as you normally run it wherever you are. And if you're near one of these 10 focal counties, please help us do that. As ever, we're going to reward you for your help with some goodies. And so we've got our Candid Critters Koozies that we send out for your first upload. So this is when you first take a memory card full of pictures, look at it using our software and send it to us. You'll get a koozie, and we've got a bunch in envelopes ready to go out for all the help you've been giving us over the summer. So if you haven't gotten yours yet for the summer, don't worry, it's on the way. And if you stick with us for a year or for 4 seasons, we've got these special shirts that we've got made up with a raccoon, kind of aimed to be this raccoon staring right into the camera trap like happens sometimes. And we're excited to be modeling these shirts today. So be sure to check out the raccoon, also known as the trash panda in some areas. So we really appreciate your help, and we try to reward you sometimes with some goodies, sometimes with by sharing all the great pictures and talking about the animals, and even with some data sometimes on our website. Etc. So,
and honestly, the biggest reward is that we are going to use the information that you're collecting to actually make decisions on the ground. Though we are really looking at the information that you're getting, and that's the main reason for having this project is that we want to have better data to make better decisions.
Great. Well, thanks. So we're now at about the end of the of our sort of rehearse part that we had set up ahead of time for you guys, and now it's time for us to respond to your questions. So you can type in questions into YouTube or into Facebook, and we've got a team of experts pulling those questions off and sending them to us. So I'll go ahead and give the first one, which is from Albert, and he wants to know if I've already passed the training, do I need to pass the training again for the Fall Fawn Frenzy? And the answer is no. You're set. You passed your training once for us. We know you know how to run a camera trap. We know you know how to do all the rest of it. And there's nothing special about the Fall Fawn Frenzy in terms of setting cameras or anything. The only difference is that we're setting cameras in primarily 10 counties, and we're running them for 2 weeks instead of 3. And that's just because we're trying to get more sites per thing. So thanks for your question there. Hopefully that answers it. You want to go for the next question here?
Well, I think I can help with this one. But
Okay.
So Matt is asking, where do you sign up for the Fall Fawn Frenzy? And you sign up in the same place that you signed up before, but you do have to go through the whole sign up. It's only going to take a couple of moments, but we need to know that you're interested in doing the specific part of the project, which is different from the rest of it.
Right, and so that's ncandidcritters.org is the website for signing up. All right, the next one is Jennifer. Can I set a camera in my yard for the Fall Fawn Frenzy? Yes, totally. We are trying to get a representative sample, just like everything we do. We want to know what's going on in the state of North Carolina, and yards are an important habitat in the state of North Carolina. And so,
Yes. Especially for deer that actually that adapt very well to our
I had two fawns in my yard last summer that would hang out. I mean, we could sit on the porch and look at them, and I think they were more interested in our blueberry bushes than us. But
hopefully. And
So-
we get a lot of calls about that, and usually don't worry about them. If you see them there, that's actually a great thing. Eventually the mom is going to come back for them and take them.
right. So with all the lush vegetation that's in many of our yards, especially the gardeners that are out there, of course, deer like it, and so we do want to get some information out of this.
Yes. I think you need to help with David.
Okay, David asks, what are some of the least common animals that have been detected? And so in North Carolina, we talked about the most common ones: deer, squirrels, raccoons. Some of the least common one we mentioned earlier are the otter and the mink, which are mostly aquatic. So I kind of consider that, like, we're not really trying to study
you got
otters
really
in
lucky
camp, right?
there.
If you want to really study otters, you got to basically find their latrines,
Yes.
right, where they come off and they go to the bathroom all the time and put them there. So some of the other rare species that we've gotten.
Well, the elk.
The elk is one, right? So we've gotten a handful of elk. We've gotten a handful of spotted skunks and a handful of striped skunks, which are not that common in the state, surprisingly. I don't think have we gotten armadillo yet? We don't have armadillo yet, unfortunately. We've gotten, the other one that's actually not very common that we've gotten, it's a super interesting one for us to see where it does show up, is wild hog, wild boar. So we do have a few wild boar pictures, not very many, and we're really interested to see where they show up and where they don't show up. So that is one of great interest. I'm actually kind of glad that we don't have more.
Yeah, definitely. They're an exotic and invasive species, and we are hoping not to have as many, but we know that they are here in North Carolina, and we also know that they are a predatory species to fawns. So I wouldn't be surprised to see decreased fawns in areas where we have a lot of feral hogs.
Oh, another one we got recently, this was another one I remember now, is the wood rat, the eastern wood rat. Is I mean, if you don't like rats, you're not going to like it, but it's kind of a cute rat. It's got bigger ears than the Norway rat and bigger eyes, and they're only in North Carolina in a little pocket over by Wilmington, and and we got this great picture, and you can see initially we sort of looked at it to make sure, and we sent it to an expert actually to double check. Indeed, it is a wood rat, and it's a species that's not very common anywhere in the East Coast, and so pretty exciting to get that wood rat. We mentioned armadillos. That's what I'm hoping for in the future, because we know there's a few armadillos in North Carolina, not very much, and mapping out where exactly they are will be super interesting.
We used to get some reports from the public calling the Wildlife Resources Commission about armadillos. We haven't in the near past. I don't know.
Yeah.
It has really dropped in the last year.
Yeah, great. So let me take this next question. It's from Russell, and he's saying, I've noticed over 5 deployments since spring that the detection distance has decreased. I assume this is because it's gotten warmer outside and there's less variation in body temperature versus ambient surroundings. How is this variation factored into your assessments? Yes, Russell, you're right. Move on. No. Let me give you the details. So what he's talking about, as you know, the detection distance is what you help us collect by putting the camera and doing a walk test to see how far away it picks you up. And on warm days, your body temperature in North Carolina is very similar to the background temperature, and so it's less likely to trigger. Fortunately, we can take this into account in our analysis. We actually take the temperature at a running meter. So we go to a weather station and get the temperature for the whole time the camera is out, and we actually work that into our analysis. So we can use that as, we call it, it helps us look at the detection. So it's a detection variable. It helps us describe whether or not we detect it. So Russell, it's very interesting that you observed that. I wish it wasn't the case, but it is. But luckily, we're able to take it into account to some extent.
So an opportunity to do, so Wesley is asking if there is an opportunity to do this or a similar study in aquatic applications. And I don't know, do you have camera traps for aquatic?
Interesting. So the problem with underwater camera traps are a thing, sort of, but they're not motion sensitive.
Yes.
And so there's no good motion sensor that's going to work underwater. But what they'll do is they'll basically just run it. And often they'll put it out with a bait bag, so the animals come to chew on the bait bag, and they get sometimes it's just a GoPro. Yeah. But the marine biologist can go through there and use kind of computer vision to filter out when there's a fish there and when it's not. And they actually find there's a lot of fish that when they go snorkeling or something, they almost never see. But if they put a camera out and go away, the fish come out. And so it's actually a way to get data on fish that you couldn't get otherwise, which is basically the same thing that we're doing, right?
Taking the human disturbance out of the picture so that they start coming out.
I mean,
that makes complete sense.
How many coyotes have you seen with your own 2 eyes in North Carolina?
Not one.
Not one. I saw my first one earlier this year, and it was the first one. And because they're so leery, they know you're coming, but the camera can get them, and so it's basically the same advantage in aquatic habitats. Now the mink otter thing's a little bit tricky, right? Because they're kind of at that edge of water and land. And
I would think that for some creature like that, maybe having cameras on areas, you can tell the areas that they're using to access bodies of water. So sometimes, or like you said, the latrines are the right place. So maybe underwater would not be ideal for that type of species.
So we got a question now from Ernest about whether it would help if they brought their camera that they borrowed already from us right back to Raleigh instead of returning it to their library, in this case in Youngsville. And thanks, that's very nice of you, but we got it. We got it covered. We're going to be doing a big haul of cameras from Youngsville back to reshuffle these. And so from our point of view, it's better to just bring it back to the place that you got it. And we're going to be moving those around. We've got a big plan working between the commission and the library folks and the museum folks. We're ready to do this big camera shuffle. So that's very nice of you to offer. But if you could just return it back there, that would be great.
And we want to thank Gary that is planning to set up a camera out in Allegheny County, and that starts tomorrow. Thank you, Gary. And again, convince your neighbors, convince your friends, convince your people to start putting cameras out there. What you're doing is really important. It's really helping us.
So I will say we are one of 2 states in the country that are running camera traps. The other one's Wisconsin. But I know we're going to do a better job than Wisconsin.
I know.
But we're counting on the residents of North Carolina to help us beat Wisconsin. And of course, it's a good natured because we're all collecting good data. Yes. But we really, if anyone from Wisconsin is watching this, you guys go for it. But I know our North Carolina folks are gonna rally and help us get cameras in all these counties and get some great information and some super fun pictures. So we got another question here from Art, who says tomorrow's going to be his first retrieval of camera cards, and the critter camera guy will arrive to change them out. I don't know what that means. Sorry.
So there's not a.
So maybe you're So Art is probably partnering with someone. It sounds like. So Art's probably working with someone else who's gonna come get the camera. So Art, what you can find when you pull this camera card out of the camera, what we want you to do is bring it back to a computer, obviously, to look at it, and use our software. And then you can use our software to look through the pictures, and you can say, this is a raccoon, this is a deer, this is 3 deer, one's a male, one's a female, all this stuff. And you can use our software to code it, and then you will upload the pictures to us. And what will happen next is we will, here at the North Carolina Museum of Natural Sciences, we will look through and double check everything. So if you messed up one of the IDs, or if you said, I don't know what this is, we'll go in. We've got some students from NC State that are getting very good at identifying mammals in North Carolina, and they work with our team as well to go in and double check. And so we verify everything, and then we archive it in the database. And what's cool is when we do that, you will get an automated update response that shows what you found. And it shows how many animals you found in your cameras, and it also compares that with all the rest of the cameras in North Carolina. So it can say, well, maybe you had more deer or less deer, or more coyotes or less coyotes. It will show you that in that reply. So really checking that image, that memory card, is kind of like Christmas. This is when you get to actually see, what do I have, and then eventually when the report comes back to you, you'll get to sort of see how does what you have compare with what we've been finding elsewhere in the state.
Does it help you to get better at identifying the animals? Do you get any feedback
Yes.
on your
So
identifying skills?
We'll tell you which animals you've identified correctly, which animals if you missed some animals, we'll tell you that. The ones that people get confused with the most are red fox, gray fox, and coyote.
That's an honest mistake.
Usually they're nighttime pictures, so it's black and white. Often they're blurry. We have gotten really good at identifying just by shape, and so we're getting pretty good at that. Some other pointers on that is gray foxes, typically have a black tail tip, and red foxes typically have a white tail tip. And so if you can see that tip and you see it's black or white, then you know it's gray fox or red fox. Sometimes you can't quite see that.
Especially when they're moving away from the frame.
Yeah. Great. So let me take Wesley's question here about interest and plans in using wireless camera traps in the future. We have played with wireless camera traps. The problem is they're pretty expensive. So you basically need to have a cell phone bill for every camera trap.
Yes.
And so it's fun to have these live data come in. And I actually have a couple of these, and I have a Twitter feed called CamTrap Live you can check out. It's actually down right now because the camera's broke. That's the other pain, is the technical. They have technical issues. I have to fight with AT&T all the time to get these images back. There's some other options that will send data back through a wireless network, but then you have to be very close to a house. So generally, we're kind of happy to get the data after 3 weeks. That's good enough for us. That lets us see what we've got.
For the type of work that we're doing, I think is good enough. Yeah. And that because we are going to collect data over 3 years, it's not that we're going to do something with it right away. Then I think collecting the data from the actual cameras is fine. Here at the Wildlife Resources Commission, we also have some of those that actually will send the data to us. They would let us know if there's something inside of a trap or not, and those are useful for those type of occasions particularly. If you know that you have a trap and you want to make sure that you're there right after it traps something, you want to make sure that the camera is going to let you know.
Great. Next one.
Oh. So Carl says that he sees coyotes regularly in Haywood County, and I'm a little jealous, Carl. That's all I can say. I know that some people are really not happy about it, but I would be happy about it.
Yeah, well, seeing coyotes regular, I guess I'm curious, why do you think someone would be seeing coyotes more in one place than another?
I think that it's interesting. Sometimes, depending on what you're doing in your land or the land around you, what they are doing, you may see that attracts coyotes. So if there's trash or if there's some type of cattle or something that has feed outside, the coyotes will eat almost anything. I know that we think of them as carnivores that will go out and hunt something, but the reality of it is that they will eat watermelons on the ground if they have a chance to. So if there's feed, or if you're feeding any other type of pet outside, then you're likely to see coyotes around your property.
Okay, cool. I think this next question might be for me. This is from someone named Fletcher, and he wants to know if we have ever gotten photos of birds other than turkeys. And that's a good question. The answer is yes, of course we have. And we get a fair amount of crow pictures and a fair amount of grouse pictures. Generally, we find that camera traps are good for surveying the terrestrial birds, the ones that walk around on the ground. We get pictures of cardinals every once in a while and chickadees and these other ones, but cameras aren't really a good way to survey those. So we don't want to really pretend to use that data to think that we're getting a good idea of these other birds because they're pretty random as to whether one actually shows up and triggers the camera. So we find that the cameras are good for the larger terrestrial birds, which around here are going to be turkeys mostly. And also some of the grouse, potentially bobwhite. I don't think we've gotten a bobwhite quail yet on the picture. They're a little bit smaller, but we could. In other parts of the world, we get pictures of all sorts of other. We got peacocks in India. Some colleagues running peacocks in India. We get tinamous in Panama. So there's a whole group of interesting large terrestrial birds that we can get and we use those data, and the other ones we don't really use. So often we just ask you to call it other bird or unknown bird because we don't have every single bird in the database because we feel like it was kind of be overkill.
Yeah, well, the next question is from Mary, and she's saying that a bear chewed on her camera. And how common is that? Well, I'm pretty sure this is not an uncommon situation. We have it a lot with our cameras, the ones that we have out for our specific projects, and we even see it with any type of little trap. Sometimes we trap small mammals, and we put a little bit of peanut butter inside of those traps, and those bears will flatten those traps out. So they're very inquisitive, they're very capable, and they have a very good sense of smell. So anything that you had on you, they can smell it on the camera. Right.
So you really want to keep, if you're going into the woods and you've got a peanut butter jelly sandwich in your backpack, don't put your camera in the same compartment because you don't want to get any. The bears have such an amazing smell, and they will smell it. And of course, they could chew on a camera even without the peanut butter smell, just because it's different and it's something curious. We have had a few cameras destroyed by bears, not a lot. More often, they just kind of when they chew on it or when they scratch their back on it,
they play with it.
They end up knocking it out of whack, and so it's sort of not very useful. I hope the bear didn't destroy your camera or our camera. It might be
a camera.
Yeah. So the next question is from Gary, and he says the company he bought his camera from is recommending having it face north to avoid inadvertent triggers due to this rising or setting sun. Does that make sense to us? And I would say yes, sort of. And so occasionally we see cameras that get the sunrise or the sunset, and it will if the camera's looking right at it, if it can see the sun, it will trigger the camera, and it'll result in some false triggers. But it hasn't been a huge issue. It doesn't happen very often, and when it does happen, it just kind of makes a couple funky looking pictures, and it's not that big of a deal. So I would say yes, if you can face north, that's going to be a little bit better, but I wouldn't worry too much about it. Unless you're in a place where you have a big open horizon and you think you're really going to get the sunset. Most of North Carolina is so wooded that you don't have that sunrise that you're going to see. If you're setting, for example, at the edge of a field, which we're really interested in, on a tree looking out into the field, then you might want to think about where the sun's rising or setting. But if you mess it up, it's not that big of a deal.
Yes. Okay, so the next one is if there's any way to track the progress of alligators coming into the state. And one of the things that is triggering your cameras is the difference in temperature between the environment and the animal. And alligators do not have a big difference of temperature. They are actually more or less the same temperature than the environment.
Cold-blooded.
Yes. So you will not see a lot of reptiles in general in your cameras. It's very hard to get those with this type of cameras that we're using. I don't think we can use them for that. We
get pictures every once in a while. Like, for example, if an alligator's in the water and cold and it's really hot, and so you could actually get an alligator that's colder than the environment, and that would trigger, which is the opposite of what we normally get, but it's still a difference in the heat and it's moving, and so you would get it. So I have seen camera trap pictures of alligators, but not very often. It's not. We were just talking today about what would be the best way to survey alligators. They're hard.
Yes. Well, and that's because the Wildlife Resources Commission right now is trying to survey alligators. It's trying to understand how the alligators are distributed in our state and how they are distributed in areas where we have a lot of population, of human population. So that's why we're discussing opportunities, and maybe there's something else that we could be doing. And just so you know, and this is a little plug for a different project, there is a specific place where you can upload pictures of alligators that are around you, and you should go to ncwildlife.org to type in the keyword alligator, and it will let you see how you're doing. We're doing it through iNaturalist, I think.
Oh, great. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So if you see an alligator while you're out setting your camera trap,
yes.
take a picture with your phone. Don't get too close.
Yes.
And give us a comment. I'd be curious if you do that while you're out setting a camera trap. Give us a post on Facebook or send out a tweet. Let us know that happened. It would be kind of an interesting story. So I think we're winding down on questions. We do have one here from Fletcher, the bird fanatic, who wants to know if we've ever gotten great blue herons.
I don't know.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. Not
It's
a
a
lot.
big bird.
It is a big bird. It's a
Yeah.
good question. So I mentioned big terrestrial birds we get pictures of, and I failed to mention the great blue heron. But yes, great blue herons are, of course, the biggest heron that we have in the state. They eat a lot of fish. I've heard a number of people complain about them coming into their backyard fish ponds and getting them. So they are quite good at finding the fish. And if they walk in front of a camera trap, we will definitely get their picture. So we've had some of those. Well, great. Thank you, everybody, for joining us on our webinar focused on what we've been finding so far this summer. Our next webinar will be in November, and we'll be talking about what we found between now and November. We'll take your questions again. We'll show you, hopefully, a lot of pictures of fawns.
Yes,
And
we're hoping for lots and lots of pictures of fawns.
Of cute fawns. And thanks so much for Maria, Dr. Palomar, for coming in from the Wildlife Resources Commission and sharing her perspective. Any closing remarks?
Well, thank you so much for having me here, and I am completely in love with this project. I think that this project is going to really help us, benefit the wildlife here in North Carolina. So, thank you.
Great. Well, keep running those cameras. See wildlife, do science. Thank you very much.
Yes.